Hello and welcome to Senior Connections. My name is Mike McCracken. Senior Connections is a production of the Missoula Community Access Television, and it deals with issues of interest to our senior community here in Missoula. It's my pleasure to host the program. Today we have two people again from Missoula Aging Services to join us in the studio. We have Maggie and Angela, and I'm told both are information and assistance specialists and also carry the rather complex title of Certified Local Ombudsman. We're going to find out what that's all about. But the subject today is long-term health care, long-term care facilities specifically, and it sounds very interesting to me. I know that as our population grows here in Missoula, more and more people are going to be looking for long-term care facilities for their loved ones and for themselves, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's start with Maggie for a moment. Maggie, when you talk about a long-term care facility, what type of facility are you referring to?
Basically, there's three types of long-term care facilities. One is the adult foster care facility, another one is the personal care home facility, and the third one is the nursing home facilities.
That's very complex. What's the difference between these three kinds of facilities?
There's a little bit of difference. The adult foster care homes are smaller home-like settings. They're licensed for only up to 4 residents at a time, so they can't have any more than that. They only offer personal care like cooking, cleaning, bathing, things like that, dressing. There's no nursing services available at all. The personal care homes, you can have 1 or more residents allowed there. It depends on the space. Some personal care homes that we have visited can house up to over 100 beds for residents. Again, they only offer personal care, the basic things, but they can also provide things like medication reminders, and they can keep records of residents' prescription drugs. In the personal care homes, there are 2 different levels of care, for some of the personal care homes anyway. All the personal care homes have an A level, and then some of the personal care homes have both A and B levels. A levels, the residents must be self-ambulatory. They must be able to transfer by themselves from their wheelchair to their beds or vice versa. Also, if they're in a wheelchair, they have to be able to wheel themselves around the facility. In A level, also, they cannot be totally incontinent, which is a difficulty controlling their bladder and their bowel movements. Also, in the B level, you have to have a third-party health care provider perform an assessment on the resident. They need to develop a care plan. And these residents do not have to be ambulatory. They can be incontinent, and there's also no nursing services available there either. The third facility is what we all know as the nursing home facility. They provide 24-hour care, 24-hour nursing services. They're under a doctor's care while at the facility. A physician must admit the resident on a B level, and staffing must also be trained and certified.
Well, it's very difficult to make a decision, I would think, on how to, which one to choose, and it would really be an individual basis. But I want to turn to Angela for a moment. And how does an individual or family decide what sort of care facility they're going to get involved with?
Well, the first step is to just determine which type of facility, and it's usually best to consult with their primary physician. In most cases, the physician can assist in helping the person determine what care needs are needed. Whether a person chooses to work with their physician or not, it's really important to make a list of what care needs are there. If they're needing bathing, help with cooking, if they're needing transferring. Determining these kind of things will then help them determine which type of facility is allowed to or able to help, and that refers back to what Maggie was just talking about. As we just learned, personal care homes can't provide nursing services. in the home, which means if someone was needing that, it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be there. Another determining factor is their ability to pay. If a person has little or no assets, they may require the state Medicaid system to help assist them with payment. And it's important for people to remember that Medicaid will help pay for a nursing home, but they don't pay for personal care homes or adult foster care homes. There is a program called Medicaid Waiver, which can provide limited services to a limited number of people in the community. And if someone was interested in that, we have a case manager at our office, and they could learn more about what that program entails.
Well, excellent. How many homes are there in the Missoula area that we're talking about?
There are 4 nursing homes and 16 personal care homes. That number seems to change quite frequently. And there are approximately 10 adult foster care homes.
With all of that range, how does a person choose which is the best for them? I mean, amongst all the personal care homes or the 4 nursing homes, what's the process you go through? How do you come up with a decision?
Right. So once a family or an individual determines that maybe a personal care home is where they would like to be living, there are a number of really good questions that need to be asked of administration, of different staff, and if appropriate, of even the resident and their families. We have some tools available at our office. We have checklists, and they provide some of those questions. They also provide structural things to look for when you're in a facility visiting, like safety features. It's really important to be looking for those things. And if someone wanted any of this material, they could call us at Missoula Aging Services, and that number is 728-7682.
Yeah.
And we would be able to send that out or have it available at our office.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that number many times during the show,
Yes.
but 728-7682 is always the number you can go to for questions and answers on anything to do with seniors. A lot of facilities out there. When somebody calls, do you have a list of these agencies with all the addresses, phone numbers, and all the information about them that they can get started with?
We do have a list. Anyone can call Angela or myself at Missoula Aging Services, and we can either leave the list up front for the secretary for clients to pick up, or we can go ahead and put it into the mail. We have lists for all of Missoula County long-term care facilities. Or if you would like to inquire out of the county, we also have phone numbers of people that you can contact in other counties.
Mike, can I add one more thing to what I was talking about earlier?
Sure.
There's one other thing that family members or individuals who are looking for places should, well, we strongly encourage them to get the survey results. And a survey is an inspection that's done by the state. It's done about yearly. It's every 15 months, sometime in that range they have to do that. And nursing homes should have those results on site, so an individual could ask the administrator, or you can access those results on the web, and it's at medicare.gov, which some people might be able to remember. And it's the only downfall to that is sometimes it does take a few months to get the results up. In most cases, you can access it right there on facility. Personal care homes and adult foster care homes may or may not have a copy on site. They're not required to. Either way, those results of those surveys can be obtained by contacting the Long-Term Care Quality Assurance Division in Helena, and Maggie and I both have those phone numbers, so they could give us a call at the office.
Good. So contact you first, and you can get that
and we
information.
can.
Outstanding. Well, I now understand a little bit more about the information and assistant specialist part of your role, and certainly you have a lot of information that people can benefit from if they're looking at choosing a long-term care facility for themselves, or they have a family member they're choosing for. But what's this ombudsman business all about? It's a difficult word for me to pronounce, and I apologize for that. But where does that program fit in all of this discussion,
Pronouncing
Angela?
it pretty well.
Okay.
The long-term care ombudsmen are advocates for residents in long-term care facilities, which are these facilities we've been talking about. And the program was incorporated into federal law in 1978 through the amendments of the Older Americans Act. And this law requires all states in the country to have an ombudsman program. The states have some flexibility in how they set up that program and oversee it, but they must have one. And in Montana, there are 2 state ombudsmen who are in Helena, and they oversee the program. and there are approximately 43 local ombudsmen. And these local ombudsmen are responsible for assisting families and residents in their areas.
Are both of you certified ombudsmen?
Ombudsman.
I don't know.
Yes,
I'll
we're
get that
both.
before the show's
That's
over.
okay, you're not the only one. We're both trained and certified by the state of Montana. We also have one other employee at Missoula Aging Services that's also certified, but Angela and myself are the primary certified local ombudsman for the Missoula County.
Okay. And you said that you're advocates for residents in long-term care facilities. What kind of things do you do as an advocate? How do you get involved there?
Yeah, as advocates, we assist people who feel powerless or are vulnerable. Often there are times when a person may be afraid to talk with administration. That can be pretty intimidating for someone, or they may not be able to clearly explain their situation, which can often happen, especially if it's a complex situation. Or they may have been able to explain, but they just don't feel that they're getting anywhere with it. And Maggie and I and other ombudsmen can serve as a voice for individuals like this. And that's the advocating part of the ombudsman. In addition to advocating, we also are negotiators. There are times when there are issues that come up where the administration and the resident might disagree on something, or the family and the administration, and we can step in and be a mediator or a negotiator between those two parties and try to help them find common ground, something that both parties would be happy with. And a third role is education. We educate on residents' rights. We educate families and residents and their friends. We also can do education for staff members. Not all facilities take advantage of our services for that. And we try to do education on residents' rights to the general public.
Can you give me some examples, maybe Maggie, on how some of these advocates have been successful, or some of the cases you might have been involved in?
Well, let me try and explain first that there are rights written for all residents in long-term care facilities. If for some reason we find out that one of their rights are not being observed, then Angela or myself can go in to conduct an investigation. Some of the more common things that we're called on to help family members or residents with are things such as call lights not being answered in an appropriate amount of time. That's a big one. Also, there could be food complaints, lost item complaints, bed rails being used without a physician's order, or possibly even an inappropriate discharge from a facility.
So, there's a lot of these things, and I don't have a lot of understanding or history with nursing homes or these care facilities, but I've certainly read cases where there's been neglect, there's been problems with the food, problems with cleanliness, problems with restraints and things like that. And that's where you people get involved in that. If somebody has a concern about that, you can go in and do an investigation. If a resident or family member feels that they need your services, how are they getting in touch with you?
All long-term care facilities are mandated to post an ombudsman poster in their facility. And those posters will show our phone number, where they can reach us. Also, if it's out of county, you can also call the Citizens Advocate number, and they have a list of all the ombudsmans statewide that they can get that from, and that number is 1-800-332-2272.
Yeah, 1-800-332-2272. That's going to get some action if somebody is concerned, either for themselves or a family member after making a visit or something like that. But again, always get in touch with you by contacting you through Missoula Aging Services at 728-7682. Anything else you'd like to wrap up with, either one of you, that a comment you'd like to make before we close the show out?
We also have information. A lot of family members are caring from a distance, so perhaps they have a family member in Ohio or another state, and they might need an ombudsman. We have a resource book in our office that will list all the phone numbers for the local area agencies on aging, and we can connect them with the person that could direct them to their ombudsman services.
Outstanding, outstanding. And then I'm going to throw a question at you. You may not be prepared to answer, but if somebody from out of state was concerned about the health care that their relative is receiving in one of these care facilities, and they did contact you through the Missoula Aging Services, would you make a trip out and visit that individual and do an investigation?
From out of state?
Yeah, for a request that came in from out of state?
No, we
Okay.
would refer.
Are you saying a resident lives here in Missoula?
Resident lives
County,
here
but
in
the
Missoula.
family member is out?
Yeah, a
Yes.
resident, like,
Yes,
I have
okay.
family in Oregon, for instance, and my parents live in Oregon, and if they were in a long-term care facility, and I called called the local ombudsman in that town and asked them to check on my father because I had heard some letters he wrote or some phone calls I had, he may be having some problems.
Yes.
Oh, you
Okay,
bet.
certainly, okay. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here, Maggie and Angela from Missoula Aging Services. Again, the number there is 728-7682 if you need any help about making a decision about long-term care facilities. If you want to find out more information, certainly for yourself or for a senior that you have in your family, give them a call. We got a great deal of information. I certainly learned about it. I'm not of the age where I need it, or I hope it's going to be many, many years before I need that sort of thing. But I know here in Missoula that we're being well taken care of, certainly by these two lovely ladies and an entire program. So make that phone call to 728-7682 if you have any questions or you need information. If you need to call the Citizens Advocate Office, that number again is 1-800-332-2272. And now I'm going to change gears on you a little bit, and I understand that Missoula Aging Services just recently moved into their new facility on Stevens.
We did.
How has that gone? How is the new facility?
It's beautiful.
It is.
It's
We're
beautiful.
really enjoying it.
I can remember visiting the old facility there on Front Street, and it was small, and it was a little bit of a rabbit warren.
Yeah.
And then I saw the facility after it. Most of the work had been done, and they had a little bit of a ribbon cutting ceremony, an open house, and it looks very large and expansive. And I unfortunately haven't been over there yet. But for those of you folks who are looking to go over to the new Missoula Aging Services facility, it is on Stevens. I think the address is 337 or 337 Stevens. There's even a bus that'll take you right to the front door, so check on the bus service. There's ample parking over there, and I understand it's a marvelous facility. So drop in once in a while. If you don't want to make the phone call, certainly you can drop in on the facility. Talk to these folks, talk to anyone else at Missoula Aging Services to answer your needs about our senior community here in Missoula. I thank you very much for joining us again today. My name is Mike McCracken. It's been my pleasure to host this program, and hope you've enjoyed getting this information. And if you have any more need for information, call Missoula Aging Services at 728-7682. Thank you very much.